Good evening. My name is Carolyn Schoenberger, and I'd like to welcome you to Immigration Forum on behalf of the Chicago Legal Clinic. And I'm thrilled tonight to have Aditya Salata, who is a private attorney but is here on behalf of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. We want to welcome you because we have a lot of important things to talk about. There's a lot of concern and a lot of worries about immigration at the moment. First, however, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Chicago Legal Clinic. I'm going to speak in English and then in Spanish. If you have questions at any time during our program, please do not hesitate to call the number on the screen in front of you. Please contact us, and we're happy to try to answer your questions. So the Chicago Legal Clinic was founded in 1981 by two new lawyers, Bishop Thomas John Paprocki and Ed Grossman were law students, and they found a need in the south part of Chicago for a low-cost legal clinic. At one point, South Chicago had a lot of businesses because of the steel mills, and a lot of people lived there, worked there. But when the mills closed, people could not afford to go out to eat or go to a local business, and therefore a lot of businesses went out of business. If people had legal problems, there really was no place to go. So the legal clinic was founded in a one-room place near 91st Street in Chicago. Today, that was in 1981. Today, 2016, there are offices in South Chicago, Pilsen, where my program is located, Austin, downtown. There are free services that concern foreclosure, chancery, and child support in the Daly Center, as well as a free legal clinic for advice and referrals for students at Harold Washington College, where I teach. And I may add, Harold Washington College is starting a great paralegal program. If you need advice, if you have any problems concerning divorce, immigration, Social Security disability, bankruptcy, guardianships, please contact the Chicago Legal Clinic from 9 to 5 every Monday and Wednesday by calling 773-731-1762. 773-731-1762. So, I'm going to now try to speak in Spanish. So, me llamo Carolina Schoenberger y yo quiero decirle un poco de la Clínica Legal de Chicago. La Clínica Legal de Chicago fue establecida en 1982. Yo dije 1981 y lo siento. Por dos nuevos abogados que querían ayudar a la gente del sur de Chicago. Antes de 1980 había muchas acerías en el sur de Chicago, pero se cerraron las acerías y la gente que trabajaba en las acerías perdieron sus trabajos. También los negocios en el sur de Chicago sufrieron por la falta de clientes. En este barrio no había ninguna oficina legal ofreciendo ayuda legal a bajos costos. Entonces, los dos abogados establecieron la Clínica Legal de Chicago en un solo cuarto. Actualmente hay 4 oficinas en los barrios de Chicago, el sur de Chicago, Pilsen, donde yo trabajo, Austin y en el centro. También hay varias oficinas en las cortes que ofrecen ayuda legal gratuita a la gente con problemas de mantenimiento de los niños, foreclosure, y también hay una oficina en Harold Washington College, donde soy profesora, que ofrece ayuda legal gratuita a los estudiantes. Si tiene un problema legal como inmigración, violencia doméstica, bienes raíces, seguro social para gente incapacitada o testamentos, hay que llamar al número central del Chicago Legal Clinic de 9 de la mañana a las 5 de la tarde, de lunes a viernes. Llame a 773-731-1762, 773-731-1762. Hay gente de habla español, la mayor parte de la gente que trabaja en la clínica habla español mejor que yo. Entonces, Hablaremos ahora en inglés, pero si tiene preguntas, llámenos por favor. So I want to again welcome Edita to our show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this important conversation.
I know you're in private practice. Forgive me for cutting you out. I know you're in private practice, but you're here on behalf of AILA, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about AILA.
Correct. I'm here on behalf of American Immigration Lawyers Association, an organization, a national organization of immigration attorneys and professors established to promote fair and reasonable immigration laws and policies. And I'm here today to contribute to this important conversation on behalf of this organization that unites all immigration attorneys practicing in the United States.
Well, I think that we can all agree that, we're going to see some very, very different types of immigration policies in the coming year, and I know that a lot of people are very, very concerned about this. Students crying, clients crying. It's very sad because, no one really knows what's going on. What would you say to people who are upset because they just don't know what is going to happen to them or a loved one?
I would definitely say that we should try to not panic. We should try to analyze the situation, take the time, since we don't know yet what's going to happen. Take time to seek answers, to educate yourself about your immigration status, about the options that you may or may not have, about precautions that you may be able to take at this time. I would also urge people not to make any hasty decisions. And first gather facts, gather knowledge, and consult. If there is a question, consult with a qualified immigration attorney. Stay away from people who might be willing or trying to take advantage of your situation. So stay away from notarios, stay away from anybody who's not licensed to provide advice in the field of immigration law.
No, today I was looking at some information prepared by tax preparers, and I guess there's some tax preparers who were trying to decide to get in on the action. So I guess not to panic, and there really is no one who knows exactly what's going on. And I think that make the point, which probably doesn't help, but again, we don't know. So probably the first thing is to, get information and go to, as Edita said, a professional, a licensed immigration lawyer. We've had some talk about priorities for prosecution. What have you heard about that?
So generally speaking, in terms of priorities, we would always focus on cases that involve criminal convictions. Anybody with complicated criminal history, anybody with complicated immigration history, if there were any prior orders of removal entered in this person's immigration history, those people should definitely exercise caution and refrain themselves from making any kind of filings, particularly rash filings, to USCIS at this time. And they should really seek legal advice and ensure that it's a quality legal advice that is being offered and that the person is licensed to provide them with such advice.
Another thing that I think people have suggested is to start gathering documents like birth certificates and marriage certificates, and if there are any medical problems, medical records, to keep them in the event that something does happen and someone is detained, having a safety plan. There are legal documents that an attorney can help you get together as to who would watch the kids, for how long. And I guess the other thing is that if someone wants to get into your house, you have the right to not open the door until you know who's there and if they have a warrant.
Correct. I'll definitely agree with it, particularly with the fact that you don't have to open the door, that you can exercise your rights, and that you probably, any kind of immigrant who is undocumented should have a safety plan that would involve documentation and provisions for children, maybe somebody who will be able to access accounts if there are any banking accounts, things like this, and that would be probably best worked out by an attorney who deals with property type of issues.
And yet, when we say don't panic, then we talk about a safety plan. I mean, the facts are that there are delays now with immigration, and if you start adding more people to the courts, because while someone may or may not have the right to stay here in this country, there is still the right of due process and the right to see a judge. There are rare instances where if you have a prior order of deportation, you may not have the right to see a judge, but most of the time, you have the right to see a judge, and the judge can consider factors such as your family issues, and I think the judges are quite fair in their assessment. So, again, I would caution people not panic and realize that there's not going to be an army sweeping down on everyone on the 20th of January. There's a lot of talk about the Deferred Action Program. So Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival started in 2012 and impacted on undocumented children brought here as children. And there's a lot of discussion about that. What have you heard recently? Because things change every day.
Correct, and we don't really know. I mean, the truth of the matter is that we don't really know at this point what type of policy will be instituted next year. I think that's important to acknowledge the fact that the statements made at the time when the campaign was being unveiled and the decisions that will be made in the future are two different things, and that the president-elect now will have to face individuals with real faces, with real stories, and that making those decisions to, for example, suspend that program will have real consequences. And to those individuals, and another question is whether or not any political figure would be really inclined to take the responsibility for this kind of actions, whether or not that will really lead to the results that this individual may have in mind. So having said that, we don't really know what the future of DACA holds, and for that reason, any applicant who would like to consider either filing an application for new DACA or renewing should again make sure that they consult somebody who's qualified to advise them on that.
Well, I think, and I know there are some DACA workshops that are going on, and I think pretty much there's agreement that if you have not already filed, you should probably not file right now. That's probably not a good idea.
Correct. That's what I advise my individual clients who present my office and ask for new filing. Let's say if they would be qualified for it. The problem is the timing. The application takes a long time. It takes about 9 months, I think, at this point.
It's very delayed.
To process a new application. So timing-wise, there's not sufficient time to process this application under current administration. So we are looking, as to whether or not it's wise to provide immigration with this information, your file basically, that would be fresh in their system, and also the question of the money that the applicant has to pay regardless of the consequences in the future.
So what about renewals? I mean, again, what are some of the, pros for renewing your DACA?
The renewal, I guess in my own practice, I tend to be a little bit more aggressive as far as the renewal, partially because the information has already been provided to USCIS. And many times my clients have acted in reliance on the DACA application. They are either in the process of continuing their education or they need the work authorization. And I would again explain that just because we filed for renewal does not mean that this renewal is going to be granted. So my client has to acknowledge that fact, that they were informed about the fact that it may be a futile application, and also that they may lose the filing fee. However, at the same time, I think that by virtue of refiling and I guess being that active DACA applicant, there's a growing power in numbers in terms of people who have filed that can pressure administration to keep that program going or find an alternative way for those people.
So again, the pros are you can work with authorization and continue to basically exist here legally or under cover of law. But there is the danger that it may end up losing, your money, and that is something that people need to understand before they renew. Another issue that's come up has been advance parole, whether or not they should seek, and there's a mechanism to get permission to leave the country for certain purposes. What have you heard about people seeking advance parole?
At this point, my recommendation would be not to really seek an advance parole. I think it's too late to process this type of application. I also would recommend to not to travel at this point unless there is a good reason for it. So again, it may be case-by-case decision, and definitely to complete any kind of foreign travel before January 20th of the next year.
We don't know what is going to happen, and if people already have advance parole, definitely be back by January. So on the 9th of December, a new act, the Bridge Act and SAFE Act, was filed in the Congress of the United States, and that would be an important act. I understand it was bipartisan. Senator Durbin was very involved in the filing of the act. What have you heard about this proposal?
Well, we have two different acts with basically one component that's similar is to basically allow DACA recipient to continue their existence in the United States on the terms that were previously provided, so basically providing them with work authorization. However, the biggest difference would be that the Bridge Act does it by basically virtue of enforcing the executive order on the similar terms that were previously outlined. However, the SAFE Act provides for extensive mandatory detention provision, provides for provisions that would expedite removal process, and I think this is an act that I would encourage people to oppose publicly as much as possible. And the Bridge Act, on the other hand, I think it's the solution that we all hope for, that will enable DACA applicants and DACA recipients to continue basically maintaining the benefits that they have previously been provided.
So the Bridge Act is a good act that will help DACA recipients, and it would be helpful. It was bipartisan. Senator Durbin and which other senator?
So Senator Graham, Senator Durbin,
Okay, Lindsey Graham,
Senator Murkowski, Feinstein, Senator Flake, and Senator Schumer, I believe.
So again, it
The
was
sponsors.
bipartisan, and really a lot of the people who came in were young people, babies. I have clients who came in when they were a couple months old, and there should be some sympathy for these young people who are trying to recognize the American dream just like our ancestors did too. And the SAFE Act, from now I understand is a very bad act that would essentially create not only panic but a lot of disorder if that was enacted into law. But Chicago is a sanctuary city, and I think that's very important for people to recognize. There are several sanctuary cities, and we became, for years we've been a sanctuary city. What is your understanding of a sanctuary city?
Well, my understanding of the sanctuary city basically goes to the understanding of the fact that the state authorities really there is no legal foundation for the requirement that the state authorities enforce federal regulations. So when you look at immigration enforcement, there are federal, under ICE, federal authorities that are created with a mandate to enforce federal immigration laws. And I think those laws are best left for enforcement in those hands. On the other hand, state police, state authorities really should be preoccupied with enforcement of state legislation, state laws. And on top of that, I think also as far as safety and policing and creating the relationship between enforcement and the communities, I think mixing immigration sometimes creates the opposite effect.
Well, again, unfortunately, we've got crime in Chicago, and if you want people to step forward and try to help the police and help stop some of the crimes that are being committed, if they're then rewarded by being turned over to immigration, you're going to have problems. So I think, again, being a sanctuary city, it not only helps the immigrants, but it also helps the rest of us who were born here or became U.S. citizens, because they would be more inclined to step forward and to complain or give information about criminal activity. And I think that's critically important too. So Chicago is a sanctuary city, and we do not turn over our victims to immigration. And Mayor Rahm Emanuel has taken a very strong stand that we will remain a sanctuary city. Which leads us into our last real big issue. And that issue has to do with people who take advantage of panic. And notaries, tax preparers, corner currency exchange people. We want to tell people to please be careful. What other advice would you give?
My advice would be to basically really maintain, take the time to analyze your case. Don't panic, and ensure that if you are taking any steps in regards to your immigration case or your future, you're trying to legalize your status at this point in the United States, to make sure that you seek qualified help, that you seek someone who is licensed, somebody who's in good standing with the bar, and they can provide you with qualified advice so that you can assess your choices and make an informed decision.
So again, make sure that you're dealing with someone, not a real estate attorney who may know nothing about immigration, but someone who has actually read the rules, read the law, maybe read some of the cases, is aware of some of the letters and guidances. It sounds like, oh, it's just easy to fill out some forms, but the repercussions for filling them out wrong could be so dire. So as we wrap up, are there any last bits of advice that you would like to give out there?
Well, I would invite everybody to maybe visit ayla.org. If they have any questions, or if they are looking for help, if they want to find a qualified immigration attorney, I think that will be also a great resource, and there are materials available.
I'm going to show one. I'm going to show something on the overhead. So again, this is from the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and ayla.org has a lot of important information. Certainly it's a registry for finding attorneys who do know what they're doing. And again, there are many resources out there that can certainly be helpful to you. So besides contacting Ayla, I would basically say to everyone, just please be careful and don't do anything stupid. Don't be careful, just be careful out there. And we hope to have more information for our next show, which will take place on January 18th. I also will have someone who knows a little bit about taxes that can give some guidance to you. So I want to thank you, Aditya, for coming on the show and giving such important information out there to people who are watching. And I want to, again, implore you all to be careful out there. Don't do anything rash. Please try not to panic. Try to find, again, good, solid advice. And despite what is going on, please have joyous holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. We hope that, again, that everything will go well in the following year. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll wish you good night.